Howdy everybody. It looks like Hannah Kidd and I are taking tea. We're not quite. Welcome to Hannah Kidd's show. It's called Inheritance and it will run at the Central for the next 5 weeks till around mid-June. Now, is this personal inheritance we're talking about, Hannah? Well, what got you onto the notion of our or someone's personal inheritance?
These pieces here were the catalyst for the beginning of the exhibition. We've just inherited a lot of stuff into our household recently in the last few years. You know how that happens and things build up and you just want to scream. I thought that if I could spend some time acknowledging the objects, spending time with them, the memories, what they were supposed to mean, then perhaps I can actually discard the objects themselves. And that's indeed what I plan to do.
So they're not quite discarded yet?
Not quite.
These remind me very much of my grandmother's china cabinet. I mean, is this what you were thinking?
Yeah, it's everybody's nana's cabinet. Great auntie's crockery, filled to the brim, higgledy-piggledy, with things that I don't even think they were that necessarily precious to herself anyway.
My grandmother she did covet. She did covet her bone china.
Covet them, yeah. Did they ever use them?
Not when I was around. No, I got served in something slightly more sort of, partisan or something.
Yeah, the mug.
One of the things that strikes me technically about these is that they have your typically, they're wire framed and your wonderfully spot welded tin.
Yeah.
But you have lavished, particularly in the wonderful rose cup and saucer you're holding, you've lavished some love painting these.
Yes.
Is that something new for you, or is this something you've always wanted to do?
This is the acknowledgement of the physical material object. I feel like if I spent time with it enough, that then I've kind of made it worthy in some way.
Uh-huh. When I look at these objects, they seem utterly worthy in my eyes, not just because they remind me of my dear grandmother, but because they're so convincingly painted, these roses. I mean, have you taken some sort of, this is actually a geometric pattern, but have you taken a rose painting course? I mean, are you a painter from way back?
This is just a close observation of the original product. yeah, no, without a doubt. I think I'm a frustrated ceramicist, like, absolutely. And every time I've dabbled in ceramics, it's had to a very poor effect, yeah. So I think maybe that's the whole roundabout way that I've gotten around that, making very impractical, practical objects.
Okay, Hannah, I feel like I'm in Tiger King here. Is this some sort of colonial collection device? This fantastic Pelt.
It is. I wanted to have something where you come into the gallery and you go, oh wow, that's cool. And that's the first thing everybody says when they see a tiger skin. And you're like, but it's not cool. Like if you actually had one in real life, that's severely uncool now, isn't it? At least it's in the animal attic of the Otago Museum. And that can still be cool.
Following on from the tiger, this is this collection of Mokomokai, of heads, Hannah. This reminds me of those early pictures of, colonial collectors. This is another part of our inheritance in Aotearoa, New Zealand, isn't it? Is that what you're digging in?
That was the starting point. Yeah. These pieces were mostly completed during lockdown. It was quite interesting. Really interesting experience, actually, just being so isolated, and I started to rattling around in the workshop by myself looking for smaller condensed projects that I could work on that weren't massive, big, elaborate pieces, and so they're quite personal in the fact that it was just me and each head spending time together. And then, so I knew them quite intimately. I do these guys, you know, now. And threading the hair as well, you know, that took time, gentleness, finesse. That was neat. So I started with Ranganui and Papa Tanuku. So Sky Father, Earth Mother. This is their first, one of their children.
This
Tane
Tane
Mauta.
Mahuta.
Yeah.
Is the
Obviously
god of
he
frost.
has, yes, and the best hair.
Ah.
The
Now,
others.
this is horsehair, Hannah, is it not?
Yeah.
And you have collected that locally?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so, you know, one of the blessings of social media is you can put yet another weird post out, and this time I was particularly after horsehair, which you can get horsehair extensions for your ponies, you know, like when you're taking them to the shows.
Yes.
However, people didn't have those readily available for me, so I was able to collect out on my bicycle around the district. A frozen horsetail was one. Yeah. Been in the freezer for a number of years. So that got brought out for me, that was great. And tail clippings. So some really lovely people go out to the paddock and clip their horses' tails for me, which I found incredibly generous because apparently it takes a while to grow. And obviously I'm obsessed with hair, not having so much of it myself, like we really are.
And although I sense there is a public aspect to the whole Mokomokai debate that we have been going through in New Zealand for many, many years, you're part Ngāti Toa, right? And that's, you know, down here in Ngāi Tahu country, Te Raparaha took some hostages, and I'm sure, you know, was involved in making Mokomokai. Was that also part of your thinking in making this body of work?
Yes and no. So it was more of a discovery, thinking about, I mean, this is what this whole show is. Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? And so I could change that to say, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What am I giving to the future generations? And I really don't know where I came from. Still, like, I have very limited knowledge of my Māori ancestry and my French, Portuguese ancestry. I believe you get told these things, you know, but not being brought up in a way where it's evidenced. It's still, it's a bit of an age of discovery for me.
Although we're standing in front of the Natural History Cabinet, Hannah, I'm going to talk, or get you to talk briefly to these two vases,
Sure.
so-called. They look like willow pattern. They look blue. They look Ming to me, with their dragons. But there's also something vaguely Taniva-like about these, is there not?
This is what happens with the progression of the work. I started with the shape of the vase because I love Grayson Perry's works.
Yes.
Once again, you know, that's
Yes.
ceramicist. And then I thought, wow, that could, you know, from my memory bank, looks like Ming Dynasty vases. So I started researching painting techniques, and as I began, I thought, that's a little bit boring, just being a dirty copier. And those dragon shapes look like Taniva.
They're a mixture of scary and reassuring.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. And it's this historical aspect, this lovely way that this show encompasses both, you know, our present and our past. You know, the museum aspect, the historical vases, so-called, the relics and the skulls, the bones. There's also a diorama aspect to some of your plate painting. I felt like I was back in the museum as a child looking at of the images of Maori and moa and so on and so forth. Again, inspiration sources for your painting.
Yeah, with the Colonial Plates, so we'll call them, I studied, early European paintings of New Zealand scenes, used them and put in my own characters. To say, I just reimagined the fox hunt in a different landscape.
Now, with the two vases that were on top of the china cabinet, Hannah, I noticed you'd done something very interesting, well, I thought so, regarding the painting.
Oh, yeah.
There's something slightly quirky about your painting style here. You told me that you've really enjoyed the work of Genevieve Figgis. Tell me about that.
She is an Irish painter, Dublin, I think, that I discovered just relatively recently. And I just love, she paints groups of people together like Georgian, I'm not sure if she actually works from old portraits or not, or like existing images, but she puts groups of people together, but mostly it's her very clever, subversive nature of painting these characters, which she works quite quickly with really runny paint. I would say that the painting's done relatively quickly, but I would imagine that the setup for that day's painting would be quite labour intensive. Yeah, so I was just playing around.
Well, I wonder too if this is part of your part of the more abject side of these objects that we do inherit, that we do learn from, that we do try and discard or whatever.
Yeah, the utterless, I wanted to make something ridiculous, like with these, something that's vulgar but interesting, that you would cringe to have around.
Right.
And want to hide.
Well, here's Captain Cook, looking at his best. Terrific. Look, I hope you've enjoyed our virtual tour of Inheritance. I hope you've enjoyed Hannah's really helpful comments upon it. If you have any questions, if you want any other information, prices perhaps, please feel free to email laura@thecentral.co.nz. Cheers.